My friend's sister falsely accused me of getting her pregnant, then the truth came out and it was her brother-in-law all along. I never thought I'd be sharing something like this on Reddit, but here I am. My life has turned into a complete mess, and I need to get this off my chest. I'm Jake, 28M, and this whole nightmare started about 6 months ago. My best friend Brian, 29M, has a sister, Tiffany, 25F. We've all known each other since we were kids, growing up in the same neighborhood. Brian and I have been close for years, but Tiffany and I were never really that tight. She was always a bit different. I don't want to sound mean, but Tiffany had some issues growing up. Nothing major, just some anxiety and stuff. Brian never talked much about it, and I didn't pry. Anyway, about 6 months ago, Tiffany calls me out of the blue. We hadn't talked in ages, so I figured something was up. She tells me she's pregnant, and I'm thinking, okay, that's unexpected, but congrats? Then she drops the bomb. She says I'm the father. I swear, my brain just stopped working for a second. I was like, wait, what? Here's the thing, I've never even hugged Tiffany, let alone been intimate with her. Not once. So for her to come at me with this wild accusation, I couldn't process it. I told her straight up, Tiffany, I don't know what you're talking about, but there's no way I'm the father. We've never been together like that. But she just kept saying it over and over, like if she said it enough times, it would suddenly become true. It was bizarre. I tried to stay calm, thinking maybe this was part of her anxiety or something, but inside I was freaking out. I asked her when this supposed hookup happened, and she gave me a date from about 3 months ago. The problem? I was on a work trip in another state that entire week. I told her this, but she just accused me of lying to cover my tracks. I called Brian right after, hoping he could talk some sense into his sister. But when I told him what Tiffany said, he got all quiet. Then he said, dude, if you got my sister pregnant, you need to step up. I couldn't believe it. My best friend was actually buying this crazy story. I tried explaining to Brian that it was impossible, that I'd never been with Tiffany, but he wasn't listening. He kept saying stuff like, I always thought you two had a thing for each other, and why would Tiffany lie about this? It was like he'd forgotten everything he knew about me. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Tiffany refused to take a paternity test, saying it could harm the baby. I looked it up, and that's not even true for most prenatal tests, but she wouldn't budge. She kept guilt-tripping me, saying stuff like, you need to be there for your child and you're abandoning us before the baby's even born. I made it clear that if she wasn't going to take the test, I wasn't going to sign anything or admit to anything. I wasn't about to get legally tied to a kid that wasn't mine. I thought that would be the end of it, but boy, was I wrong. Tiffany started telling everyone that I'd gotten her pregnant. And I mean everyone, her parents, our old school friends, even people at the local stores. Suddenly, I was getting dirty looks everywhere I went. People I'd known for years were calling me a deadbeat and a liar. Brian's parents, who had always treated me like a second son, now refused to speak to me. They sent me this long, disappointed email about how they trusted me with their daughter and how I'd betrayed that trust. It was heartbreaking to read, knowing that none of it was true. My own parents were torn. They've known me my whole life, and they know I'm not the type to sleep around or abandon my responsibilities. But they also couldn't understand why Tiffany would make up such a huge lie. My mom kept asking me if I was absolutely sure nothing had happened, like she was hoping I'd forgotten about sleeping with Tiffany or something. Work became uncomfortable too. Someone, I'm pretty sure it was Tiffany, called my boss and told him I was refusing to support my pregnant girlfriend. My boss pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay at home. I had to explain the whole mess to him, which was mortifying. I tried to keep living my life normally, but it was impossible. Every time I went out, I felt like people were whispering about me. I lost friends who chose to believe Tiffany over me. Even some of my closest buddies started to doubt me, saying things like, "Are you sure you don't remember anything? Maybe you were drunk?" The worst part was, I couldn't even be angry at Tiffany. I mean, I was angry, but I also felt sorry for her. Something was clearly wrong for her to make up this huge lie. I suggested to Brian that maybe Tiffany needed help, but he just accused me of trying to make his sister look crazy to cover my tracks. I felt completely alone. The people I thought would always have my back were turning against me, all because of a lie. I couldn't understand how they could so easily believe I'd do something like this. After about a month of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I hired a lawyer. It was expensive, but I needed to protect myself. My lawyer advised me to cut all contact with Tiffany and her family, including Brian. That was hard. Brian had been my best friend since we were kids, and now I couldn't even talk to him. My lawyer also helped me draft a cease and desist letter to Tiffany, telling her to stop spreading lies about me. We sent copies to Brian and their parents too. I hoped this would make them realize how serious I was about fighting this false accusation. But it just made things worse. Tiffany started crying to everyone about how I was threatening her with lawyers when she was just trying to get me to take responsibility. Brian left me an angry voicemail, calling me every name in the book for harassing his pregnant sister. I felt like I was losing my mind. How had my life turned into this? I was being accused of something I didn't do, and no one believed me. The stress was affecting every part of my life. I couldn't sleep, I was distracted at work, and I was pushing away the few friends who still believed me. I decided to fight back in my own way. I started gathering evidence, flight records from my work trip, hotel receipts, even security camera footage from my apartment building showing I was home alone the night Tiffany claimed we hooked up. I gave it all to my lawyer, hoping it would be enough to prove my innocence. But Tiffany had an answer for everything. She said I must have snuck back into town for a night. She said the security footage must be from a different night. She even suggested I had paid someone to pretend to be me on the work trip. It was like arguing with a brick wall. As the months went by, Tiffany's belly grew, and the pressure on me increased. People started talking about baby showers and nurseries, all while looking at me like I was some kind of monster for not stepping up. I felt trapped. I knew the truth, but it seemed like no one else wanted to believe it. I started to withdraw from everyone, even the people who were on my side. It was just easier to be alone than to constantly defend myself. Now, 6 months into this nightmare, I'm at a breaking point. Tiffany is due in about 3 months, and I'm terrified of what's going to happen when the baby is born. Will she try to put my name on the birth certificate? Will she come after me for child support? I don't know what to do anymore. I've lost my best friend, I'm barely speaking to my family, and my reputation in this town is ruined. All because of a lie that I can't seem to disprove. I guess I'm writing this because I need someone, anyone, to believe me. I'm not the father of Tiffany's baby. I've never been with her. I'm just a guy whose life has been turned upside down by a false accusation. If anyone has been through something like this or has any advice, please, I'm desperate for help. Update 1: It's been about 3 weeks since my last post, and things have somehow managed to get even crazier. I want to thank everyone who commented and sent messages of support. It meant a lot to know that some people out there believed me. So, remember how Tiffany refused to take a paternity test? Well, she finally agreed to one. I was relieved at first, thinking this would finally clear everything up. But then I found out why she agreed, and it just made everything more complicated. Turns out, Tiffany's older sister Kate, 32F, and her husband Mark, 34M, had been trying to have a baby for years. They'd gone through multiple rounds of IVF, all unsuccessful. Tiffany had apparently offered to be a surrogate for them about a year ago, but Kate and Mark turned her down, saying they wanted to keep trying on their own. Well, last week, Kate found out that Mark had secretly taken Tiffany up on her offer to be a surrogate. Without Kate's knowledge, Mark and Tiffany had gone to a fertility clinic and used Mark's sperm to impregnate Tiffany. Kate only found out because she overheard Mark and Tiffany arguing about it. Kate was furious, obviously. She kicked Mark out of the house and then came to confront Tiffany. That's when Tiffany broke down and admitted that she'd made up the whole story about me being the father. She said she panicked when Kate found out and didn't want her sister to hate her, so she picked me as a scapegoat. When I heard all this, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. On one hand, I was relieved that the truth was finally out. On the other hand, I was angry that Tiffany had put me through hell for months just to cover up her own mess. Brian called me to apologize. He said he should have believed me from the start and that he felt terrible for doubting me. It was good to hear, but honestly, it didn't make up for months of him treating me like garbage. Our friendship is pretty much over at this point. Tiffany's parents also reached out to apologize. They invited me over to talk, and I went, against my lawyer's advice. They were in tears, saying how sorry they were for believing Tiffany over me. They asked if there was anything they could do to make it up to me. I just told them I needed time. As for Tiffany, she's a mess. Kate's furious with her, Mark's been kicked out, and now everyone knows she's been lying for months. She tried to apologize to me, but I couldn't even look at her. I just walked away. Maybe that makes me a jerk, but after everything she put me through, I couldn't stand to hear her excuses. The town's reaction has been mixed. Some people have apologized for believing Tiffany's lies. Others are still giving me dirty looks, like they think I somehow orchestrated this whole thing. A few people have suggested that maybe I really am the father and this surrogacy story is just a cover-up. You can't win with some people. My boss has been surprisingly understanding. He even offered me some paid time off to deal with everything, which I'm considering taking. I could use a break from this town and all the drama. My parents are torn between being relieved that I was telling the truth and being angry at how Tiffany's family treated me. They want me to forgive and forget, saying that holding on to anger will only hurt me in the long run. I get where they're coming from, but it's not that easy to just let go of everything that's happened. My lawyer is advising me to sue Tiffany for defamation. She says we have a strong case, given how much damage Tiffany's lies have done to my reputation and mental health. Part of me wants to do it, to make her face consequences for what she did. But another part of me just wants to put this whole mess behind me and move on with my life. I'm still processing everything. One minute I'm relieved that the truth is out, the next I'm angry all over again about what I've been through. I've lost friends, damaged family relationships, and my reputation in this town might never recover. All because of a lie that spiraled out of control. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Part of me wants to leave town and start fresh somewhere else. Another part wants to stay and rebuild my life here, to show everyone that I'm not the person Tiffany made me out to be. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm in therapy, started a few weeks ago when things were at their worst, which is helping me deal with all the anger and hurt. I'm trying to focus on the people who stood by me through all of this, and on figuring out what I want my life to look like going forward. I'll update again if anything major happens, but for now, I'm just trying to find my way back to some kind of normal. Thanks again to everyone who supported me through this. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and a lot has happened. I wish I could say things have gotten better, but in some ways, they've gotten even more complicated. First, the baby was born. It's a boy, and yes, DNA tests confirmed that Mark is the father. Kate was there for the birth, but she and Mark are still separated. Last I heard, they're in counseling, trying to work things out. I don't know all the details, and honestly, I'm trying to stay out of it. Tiffany reached out to me again after the baby was born. She wanted to apologize face-to-face. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. She cried, told me how sorry she was, how she never meant for things to get so out of hand. She said she'd been dealing with some mental health issues and wasn't thinking clearly when she made up the lie about me. I listened to her, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive her. Maybe that makes me a bad person, I don't know. But the damage she caused isn't something that can be fixed with a simple "I'm sorry." I told her I appreciated her apology, but that I needed her to leave me alone. She agreed, but she looked heartbroken. Part of me felt bad, but a bigger part was just relieved to have her out of my life. Brian and I tried to reconnect. We met for a beer, talked things out. He apologized again for not believing me, said he should have known better. I could tell he wanted things to go back to how they were before, but too much has happened. Our friendship will never be the same. We're civil now, but that's about it. The town's reaction has been weird. Some people have gone out of their way to apologize and try to make amends. Others still look at me like I'm somehow involved in this mess. A few have suggested that maybe I should step up and help Tiffany with the baby, since her life is so complicated now. It's like they can't let go of the idea that I'm somehow responsible for this situation. I decided not to sue Tiffany for defamation. My lawyer wasn't happy about it, but I just want to move on. The idea of dragging this out in court, having to relive everything, it's just too much. I know some people will say I'm letting her off too easy, but I'm doing what's best for my mental health. Work has been a challenge. Even though my boss knows the truth, there's still gossip around the office. I can feel people watching me, whispering when they think I can't hear. It's made it hard to concentrate, and my performance has suffered. I'm looking for a new job, maybe in another town. A fresh start sounds pretty good right now. My parents are still pushing for reconciliation. They keep talking about forgiveness and moving forward as a community. I know they mean well, but they don't seem to understand how much this has affected me. I've started distancing myself from them a bit. It's hard, but I need space to heal without feeling pressured to make nice with everyone. The hardest part in all of this has been dealing with the lasting effects of Tiffany's lie. Even though the truth is out, the damage to my reputation lingers. I've lost friends who still can't look at me the same way. Dating is pretty much impossible in this town now. Who wants to go out with the guy who was at the center of all that drama? I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I want for my future. This whole experience has made me realize how quickly life can change, how easily people can turn on you. It's been a harsh lesson, but maybe a necessary one. For now, I'm focusing on myself. I'm still in therapy, working through all the anger and hurt. I'm hitting the gym more, trying to channel some of that negative energy into something positive. I've also started volunteering at a local animal shelter. It's been good to focus on something outside of myself, to help beings that don't care about town gossip or past drama. I don't know what the future holds. Part of me still wants to leave town, start fresh somewhere new. Another part wants to stay and prove that I'm not going to let this situation define me. Either way, I know it's going to be a long road to feeling normal again. I'll update again if anything major changes. Thanks again to everyone who's offered support throughout this crazy journey. It's meant more than you know. Update 3. It's been half a year since my last update, and I'm finally starting to feel like my life is getting back on track. A lot has changed, and I wanted to share where things stand now. First off, I moved. After months of feeling like an outcast in my own town, I decided a fresh start was what I needed. I found a job in a city about 3 hours away and made the move about 4 months ago. It wasn't an easy decision, leaving behind everything familiar, but it's been the best thing for me. The new job is going well. It's in the same field as my old one, but with better opportunities for advancement. My new coworkers don't know anything about my past drama, and it's refreshing to just be Jake from accounting instead of that guy who supposedly got his friend's sister pregnant. I've started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to go out without worrying about people whispering or giving me dirty looks. I'm taking things slow, being upfront about my past if things start to get serious. It's not an easy conversation to have, but I've learned the hard way that honesty is crucial. As for Tiffany and her family, I've kept my distance. Brian reached out a few times after I moved, but I kept our conversations short. I'm not angry anymore, just done. Tiffany sent me a letter about a month ago, another apology and an update on her life. I read it but didn't respond. Maybe that's cold, but I need to prioritize my own well-being. My parents were upset when I decided to move, but they've come around. They visit sometimes, and it's been good to rebuild our relationship away from all the drama. They finally seem to understand why I couldn't just forgive and forget and stay in our hometown. The hardest part of moving was leaving behind the few friends who stood by me through everything. We still talk regularly, and they visited a couple of times. It's not the same as having them nearby, but knowing I have people who believed in me even when things were at their worst, that means a lot. I still think about everything that happened, but it doesn't consume me like it used to. Therapy has helped a lot. I've learned to process my anger and hurt in healthier ways. I'm not going to lie and say I'm completely over it, but I'm in a much better place mentally than I was 6 months ago. One unexpected positive that came out of all this, I've become more involved in advocating for those falsely accused of crimes. I've joined a support group and have even spoken at a few events about my experience. It's been therapeutic to connect with others who've been through similar situations. Looking back, I can see how much this experience changed me. I'm more cautious now, slower to trust. But I'm also stronger. I know I can survive something I never thought I'd have to face. I've learned who my real friends are, and I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and standing up for myself. I don't know what the future holds. Part of me is still healing, still processing everything that happened. But for the first time in a long time, I'm also excited about what's ahead. I'm building a new life, one that isn't defined by Tiffany's lie or the drama that followed. To anyone going through something similar, hang in there. It might not feel like it now, but things can get better. Stand your ground, seek support, and don't be afraid to make big changes if that's what you need to heal. Thanks for listening to my story. Writing these updates has been part of my healing process, and I appreciate everyone who's followed along. This will probably be my last update. It's time to close this chapter and focus on the future. Wish me luck.